Hello, how are you today? We're doing Model 11. This is the second part, Lesson 2, Medication Assistant and Medication Administration. We did Lesson 1 already. Now we're doing Lesson 2. As usual, we have to do the key terms. You need to study these key terms and you need to know them. Okay, let's start medication basics. Medications are powerful substances that can treat, cure, or help or control an illness, relieve symptoms like pain, or they can prevent disease, although. So the medication include prescriptions. The medication can be prescriptions, and they can be over the counter. Usually, prescription medications are must be ordered by healthcare professionals, and over the counters they don't need any prescription. You just buy them from the store. All medications have generic or brand name. All medications have usually two names. The generic name give information about the chemical makeup of the medication, and generic medication names are usually not capitalized, like Tylenol. This generic medication, the Tylenol, it can be named like acetaminophen, not capitalized ibuprofen, furosemide. These are the generic names. And the brand names are usually capitalized, like Tylenol, Motrin, Lasix. These are used to specific manufacturers when they sell the product. The name is owned by the manufacturers all the time. It cannot be used by any other company. And medication are packed differently. It can be in a pill bottle or with a dropper, or it can be, bubble packs. They are like in a plastic bingo cards, or it can be organizers. People they come in organizers. It shows here different kinds. It can be Medicaid or different kinds, or sometimes it can be packed separately, one dose separately. So these are the medication packages. And all the time, whenever you see a medication, you have to see the label. On the label, you need to see each bottle need to have the client name on it, usually first name, last name. It should have a medication name, a generic or brand name. They usually write both. And it needs to have the dose, how much the patient has to take. In the route, how does the patient take this medication? It should be written in there. And frequency, how many times a day this person needs to take it. And how much is in the container, usually they write it. Medication can also cause serious harm or even death, even if they are helpful. So to help prevent negative effects, home care aides must understand the basic idea of medication interaction and side effects. Medication levels. Prescription or it can be prescription or over-the-counter medication. They usually sometimes they can interact with each other. That's called medication interaction, and they bring unwanted side effects. So we, as a caregivers, you need to know what are the side effects usually, and we need to label or read the label that comes with the medication, and read what kind of foods should we avoid and what kind of side effects are we expecting. We can read on the bottle. They usually write them. And generally, what are the side effects? We usually say you have to watch for the side effects. What are the side effects? Side effects of medication that are not part of the positive benefit are called side effects. If you don't want something, something that you get from the medication, something that you don't want is a side effect. So part of the home care aide job is to observe the client, to watch for the side effect. It can be nausea, vomiting, weight gain, and restlessness, anything. These side effects can be mild or moderate, and it can be severe. When it is severe, it can bring a person to very bad condition, to the point that we have to take them to the hospital so they can get a treatment. What's allergic reaction? Sometimes people have an allergic. So an allergic reaction happens when the body immune system reacts to a medication, causing the body to produce chemicals. Those chemicals, they produce chemicals that cause itching, swelling, muscle spasm, and a lot more. If the client experiences reactions or side effects that may call life-threatening, please call 911. It's very important. Now let's talk about routes of medication. Medication can be taken in several different ways, and the book shows 7 ways. Oral, that means something taken in the mouth. It can be a tablet, it can be a liquid, but something you take it orally by mouth. That's called oral route. Sublingual is if you put a medication under your tongue. That's sublingual. And topical is like on top of your skin. It's something you put on top of your skin is topical. And rectal, sometimes the name indicates it. Rectal is it go by rectum. They go by rectum way. Vaginal, they go by vaginal. Inhalation, inhale. So you inhale it, you breathe it in. That's the medication name. Injection is inject. You inject it usually by needles. That's how the name indicates. Okay, now the next section that we are looking at right now is medication assistant and medication administration. What are the difference between them? What's a medication assistance? What's a medication administration? So you already have a knowledge about medication. What are the medications? How do I look medication? How do I take the medication? You have the basics idea. Now we learn about medication assistant and medication administration. Okay. Medication assistant is helping the client to take medication independently. Medication assistant, you don't need a delegator nurse to delegate you. You can do it just because you took this class. You can give medication to people. But medication administration, a nurse has to come and has to show you how to do it. That's the difference between those two. But let's see each of them one at a time. Medication assistance does not require nurse delegation. Medication assistance can include opening a medication container for a client or handing the container to the client. Maybe the medication is in a cup, you give it to them, or pouring the medication in a cup, or remind the client to take their medication. It can be helping the client to steady the hand if the person is shaking or something like that, or it can be crushing a medication or something like that if you have the order. Altering medication means crushing or dissolving medication. It's so that the client can take it. The altering medication requires approval of healthcare practitioner. So any altering medication must be written in client service plan or other location in the client health file. But some medication cannot be altered, like extended release or sustained release. You can't crush it. If you crush it, it doesn't serve the service of the medication. Requirement for medication assistant. How do identify medication assistant from medication administration? Legally, there are 2 conditions that must be met to be considered medication assistant. First, the client must be able to perform the last step for themselves, like placing a pill in their mouth or applying ointment to the skin. The client has to do the last step, maybe putting it in the mouth. And the client must be aware that they are taking the medication. If these 2 are fulfilled, you can just give them the medication. You don't need any nurse delegator. If the client does not meet both of these conditions for medication assistant, and then you need a nurse delegation to do it. Okay, let's look about medication administration. Medication administration is necessary when a client is unaware that they are taking medication, or a client is physically unable to take or apply their medication. If they can't do it, and then we need a medication administration. And administration usually requires a nurse to perform, or a qualified caregiver with a nurse delegation. Either of two. Either the nurse do it, or either the nurse has to replace you to do it, so that she will teach you. So the nurse, they will you give a medication to the client in a manner you are instructed by the delegated RN. So nurse delegation is required for home care aid to administer medication. It's very important for you to know. So in a nurse delegation, it's always client have their rights. They have a right to choose not to take their medication. They have the right to informed consent. They can ask you why they're taking the medication. And they also have a right not to be chemically restrained. You can't give medication just it's convenient for you. In this chapter, in this lesson, there is a medication assistant skill. It's found in page 429. You need to practice this skill. I'll have a different lesson on that. Home care aides are responsible for the specific steps while providing medication assistance. Generally, the book has a couple of tips for you to remember when you are medication assistant. One is ask the client to sit up when taking oral medication to make it easier to swallow. And second is, if the client cannot sit up and is lying in bed, help her to roll to the side to make the swallowing very easier. That's the general right. So when you give medication, you need to know the 5 rights of medication. And those are like the right medication, the right client, the right dose, the right route, and the right time. So we're going to look at them in detail. And these are the first one. And the second one is you need to check the 5 rights 3 times. The first one is, first, when you take medication out of the storage area, when you pick up the medication, that's the first time you check it. And the second time, when moving it from the original container to the enabler, or maybe you can put it in a cup or in whatever you are giving, when you are transferring it, that's the second time you check. And the last one is when putting it back into storage area, you check it. Did I pour the right medication to the right client? Check it. This is very important for you to know. Okay, what's the right medication? We said we have 5 rights: the right medication, the right client, the right dose, the right route, and the right time. So let's see, what's the right medication mean? The right medication means to make sure you have the right medication. It's self-explanatory. The client name is on the container, and for prescription, and the name of the medication on a container matches the prescribed order. You have to match. And if the medication is expired or not, you need to look at that. And the second one is the right client. So you look at it, is this the right person? Always identify the client. It's your responsibility to make absolutely certain that you know who the client is before you assist the medication. So stay with each client while they take the medicine. And the third one is right dose. Know the correct dosage, symbols, and abbreviations for medication. Be sure that the amount on the client text matches the amount on the label. So these are the labels: cc, centimeter, gram, drop, drops, international units, kilogram, liter, or microgram, milli-equivalent, milligram, milliliter, millimeter unit. These are the units they put on the medication, so you make sure you know what you are doing. And the fourth one is the right route, how we give it. Make sure the client takes the medication through the intended route. How? Is it orally? It's listed in here on your book. Is it orally? Does the person swallows it? Is it sublingual? Do we have to put it under the tongue? Is it topical? Is this something we put on the top? Is it rectal? Is it going to be on the rectum? Is it vaginal? Does it go through vagina inhalation, does the person inhale it or is it injection? So we need to know the right route. And also when we're talking about the route, so there are some abbreviations too. This usually, it's very important to know if they write like OD, that means the right eye, OS, left eye, OU, both eyes, PO by mouth, SC or SQ is sub-Q, SL is sublingual, PR is per-rectal. So it's very important to know those. The last one is right time. The regular schedule for medication will be determined by the client, the doctor or a nurse or a facility. So the schedule should be clear so that you can assist the client at the right time. Check the medication record or medical container for the correct time for the medication. Those are listed in here too. So when you are doing it, there's a time. There's at, after meals, as needed, at bedtime, before meals, every 4 hours, every bedtime, every day, every other day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, or discontinue or stop, or nocturnal at night, with or without. It's very important to know these words. You need to be familiarize yourself with those. It's very helpful. Okay, let's see about as needed medication. PRN medications are as needed. They come from Latin, pro re nata. You may assist the client with as needed medication if there are specific written direction to follow, or the clients they need the medication. If the person have as needed medication, you give it. However, if professional judgment is required to decide if the medication is needed, or when the client is not able to determine what's needed, and then medication administration is needed. For example, if a person takes Tylenol, if it has an order for Tylenol, if a client asks you, can I get a Tylenol, the person is aware he needs it, go ahead and give it. But the person moaning, crying, and he doesn't even know what's going on, and you think and you need a nurse delegation, and then this person is in pain, and then you give them the medication. That's different. Those is how one needs a judgment. Okay, now after we do all this, after we give, we have to observe, document, and report. As with performing any care task, part of your responsibility in medication assistance is to observe, document, and change. So when you make the client their medication, when you give them the medication, you watch for signs of side effects or other reactions. And if you see anything, report. And you have to document it and then report it. These are our job. It's a very important job. Sometimes residents, they don't want to take the medication. They have a right if they don't want to take the medication. Individuals have the right to choose not to take medication or treatment. So sometimes the client doesn't want to take a medication. So the first thing you should do is simply to ask why they don't want to take it, and you try to figure out why is it. So there's examples in your book. Maybe there is unpleasant taste, or maybe unpleasant side effects, maybe lack of understanding, maybe denial of need for medication, or background for cultural reasons. So there may be a lot of reasons why the patient doesn't want to take it. So it's good to read these charts so you know it. If there's no solution to why a client does not want to take medication, and then you have to report and document it. But generally, unpleasant taste, if the medication doesn't taste good, you can offer ice cream or something sweet so they can take it. And if there is unpleasant side effects, maybe you have to talk to the doctor to avoid what those unpleasant side effects. Maybe if there's a lack of understanding, explain it to them why they take the medication, and like that. If there is a denial need for medication, you can discuss this to take the medication with the client. If there is any background or cultural reasons, maybe it's time to encourage the client to share any concerns or why they don't want to take it, something like that. Whenever there is error, we need to report the errors too. It doesn't matter who did it, but we need to report it. Even sometimes if there is any break in the cycle, wrong time, wrong medication, wrong person, wrong route, any omission, we need to report it. You should have an understanding of what to do when you discover an error, so make sure you know the specific procedures in your workplace. It's important that you know the errors and you do it. Okay, now let's talk about storage and disposal of medication. How do we store a medication? Medication should be stored in the original container with a legible original label. No refrigerated medication should be kept in a dry, no warmer than 85 degrees Fahrenheit. If it is refrigerated, it should be stored between 36 to 46 degrees Fahrenheit. And be sure to separate medication storage from the food storage. If you work in an adult family home or assisted living facility, follow the facility policy regarding medication storage. Usually, if you put medication in a fridge, it's a good idea if you put it in a Ziploc style plastic bag or other leak-proof containers. That would be advisable. But when you store controlled substance, it's the same, but it's a little bit different because the scheduled drugs have a high potential for abuse and must be stored securely. So you have to follow your facility how you store those. Then how do we dispose medication? We dispose medications when the medication is discontinued or recalled or expired. We have to dispose it. So usually we have to follow employees' policy and procedure on proper medication destruction. And usually when you dispose a controlled substance, you need to have a witness so to make sure you did it. If the client lives in their own home, it's different. So you may help them reach out to the local police department and learn if they have a drug return method available. There is a website that's listed in your book over here, so you can go there and you can access where can the people dispose the unwanted medication. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.